මේකයි ඔය ක්වියර් පොතක් විදියට හඳුන්වලා දෙන්නේ.
ඒක queer කියලා අඳුරලා දෙන අතරතුර මම very importantly කියන එකක් තමයි ඒක cross cultural පොතක් කියලා.
I love this book, Sean. Thank you, not only for writing it, but for introducing me to it. The richness and the detail of the description of Sri Lanka and its culture, and your efforts to ensure that we understand the complex issues that this creates for Sri Lankan gay men, even after they have moved to another country.
Protagonists journey back and forth between Sri Lanka and Australia. Their sense of identity and belonging shifts, stretches, and reforms. It's an incessant pendulum movement between the desire to step out of their comfort zone, liberate parts of themselves that they couldn't fully express at home, and the equally powerful urge to hold on to the core aspect of their Sri Lankan identities that they cherish.
To bring my own academic interests into the creative space. The issue of gender is a very cultured construct.
හායි මම සුපුන් නාමයේ ලින්දලඟ. අද ලින්දලඟට ආයි ෂෝන් එකතු වෙනවා. හායි ෂෝන් කොහොමද?
Hi Supun, thanks again for having me on the show.
Thank you for being on the show again. So අද එපිසෝඩ් එකේ අපි කතා කරන්නේ ෂෝන් පොතක් පබ්ලිෂ් කර අපි අර කලින් එපිසෝඩ් එකේ කිව්වා වගේ ඒකේ නම තමයි A Butterfly. ඒක ලංකාවේ රිලීස් වුණේ පහුගිය පොත් ප්‍රදර්ශනය කාලෙදී. නමුත් ගිය සතියේ එයා ඔස්ට්‍රේලියාවල රීලොන්ච් එකක් තිබ්බා මේ 26 වෙනිදා පහුගිය මාර්තු. ඉතින් අද එපිසෝඩ් එක අපි බැලුවේ ෂෝන්ගේ බටර්ෆ්ලයි කියන පොත ගැන කතා කරන්නත් ඒ පොතෙන් අපි කොටස් කිහිපයක් කරන් ඒ ගැන කතා කරන ගමන් ඒ පොතේ විස්තරය ගැන කතා කරන ගමන්ම අපේ ඒ පොත සම්බන්ධ ටොපික් එකක් ගැන කතා කරන විශේෂ ඉමිග්‍රේෂන් එක සම්බන්ධව සහ ඒ සම්බන්ධ කාරණා ගැන එපිසෝඩ් එක පටන් ගන්න කලින් ෂෝන් මාත් එක්ක තාම මට පොත සම්පූර්ණයෙන් කියවන්න බැරි වෙනවා මොකද තාම මෙහි නැති නිසා මම ඒක ගෙන්න ගන්න ඕනේ පොත කියවන්න. නමුත් ෂෝන් මාත් එක්ක ෂෙයා කරා මේ ඒ පොතේ කොටස් කිහිපයක් ෂෙයා කරා මම ඒ ටික කිව්වා ඒක මේ ඒ ගැන මට හිතිච්චටගේ මම පොඩ්ඩක් මුලින්ම මේ ෂෝන් එක බෙදා ගන්න කැමතියි. ෂෝන් විශේෂයෙන්ම මම කියවපු කොටසේ ඒ පොතේ ප්‍රධාන චරිතය ඇසින් දේවල් දකින විදිනේ ෂෝන් ලියලා තියෙන ඒකේ ගොඩක් වෙලාවට පේන දෙයක් තමයි ඒ කියන්නේ ෂෝන් මේක මට හඳුනලා දුන්නේ පොත ක්වියර් පොතක් විදියට. නමුත් මට ඒක කියවගෙන යද්දී හිතෙන්නේ ඒක ක්වියර් මිනිස්සෙක් තමයි ප්‍රධාන ඒකේ කතානායකයා වෙන්නේ. නමුත් එතන ඒක ක්වියර්නස් එක ඒ මනුස්සයාගේ ඒක ඩෙන්ටිටි එකක් වුණත් එයාගේ පර්ස්පෙක්ටිව් එකෙන් එයා ඉමිග්‍රන්ට් කෙනෙක් විදියට එයා දකින්න දේවල් මම හිතන්නේ ඕනම කෙනෙක්ට රිලේට් කරගන්න පුළුවන් විදියට තමයි මේ පොත ලියලා තියෙන්නේ. කියන්නේ විශේෂයෙන් එයාට ආපු ප්‍රෙෂර් එක ගෙදරින් අම්මගෙන් විශේෂයෙන්ම ලංකාව අතහැරලා වෙන රටකට ගිහිල්ලා ජීවිතේ දියුණු කරගන්න වගේ ඒ දේ මම හිතන්නේ අපි හැමෝටම ලංකාවේ ජීවත් වෙන සිහිනයක් වගේනේ. ඒක එකම සිහිනය වගේත් සමහරට කියන්න පුළුවන් නේ. රටින් එළියට ගිහිල්ලා මේ දියුණුව කියන්නේ රටින් දියුණුව ගොඩක් වෙලාවට තියෙන රටින් එළිය කියන එක. ඒ ප්‍රෙෂර් එක. අනිත් එක රටින් එළියට ගියාට පස්සේ එන ඩෙන්ටිටි ක්‍රයිසිස් එක සහ අර මේ නේද අපේ අපි ලංකාවේ ජීවත් වෙච්ච විදියක් තියෙනවා. අපි ජීවත් වෙච්ච කල්චර් එකක් තියෙනවා. ඒකට පුහුරු වෙච්ච විදියක් තියෙනවා. ඒක දිගටම කන්ටිනියු කරන්න යන එක ගැන. සහ ඒක අර මේ පොතේ කතානායකයා මේ විදියට ඒ පුද්ගලයා සාකෑස්ටිකලි දකින විදිය මම හිතන්නේ මේ දේවල් ක්වියර් නෙමෙයි ඇත්තටම කිව්වම මේ දේවල් ඕනම කෙනෙක්ට පොදුයි මම හිතන්නේ ඒක ඕන කෙනෙක්ට රිලේට් කරගන්න පුළුවන් මම එක ප්‍රශ්නයක් අහන්න කැමතියි ෂෝන්ගෙන් මේකයි ඔය ක්වියර් පොතක් විදියට හඳුනලා දෙන්නේ නැහැ. ඔයා මට හඳුනලා දුන්නේ ඒක ක්වියර් පොතක් විදියට. මොකද මට පොඩි අදහසක් තියෙනවා ඒක සමහර විට අපේ සමාජයත් එක්ක අපි මිනිස්සු දේවල් ඩිස්මිස් කරන දේවල් එක දැක්කම ක්වියර් පොතක් කියලා කිව්වම සමහරට ඒක කියවන්න නැතුව ඩිස්මිස් කරන සම්භාවිතාවක් තියෙන්න පුළුවන්. ඒකෙන් මම හිතන්නේ මේ පොතෙන් ඇත්තටම මේ කියවෙන මේ ගොඩක් දේවල් මම හිතන්නේ මිස් වෙනවා කියලා. එහෙම ඩිස්මිස් කරොත් කවුරු හරි. ඉතින් මම අරගෙන අහන්න කැමතියි ඒක ක්වියර් පොතක් විදියට ඔයා සාමාන්‍යයෙන් ඒක හඳුන්වලා දෙනවද නැත්නම් ඒකට හේතුව මොකද්ද? ඔයාට හිතෙන්නේ කොහොමද?
හොඳ ප්‍රශ්නයක් සුපුන්. මම queer පොතක් හැටියට තමයි ඒක හඳුන්වලා දෙන්නේ because I feel that the story like you said කතාව කියන්නේ queer perspective එකකින්. හැබැයි මම ඒක queer කියලා අඳුරලා දෙන අතරතුර මම very importantly කියන එකක් තමයි ඒක cross cultural පොතක් කියලා. ඒකේ පොතේ cross
Mhm.
cultural narrative එකක් තියෙනවා කියලා. මම culture කියන word එක හරියට පාවිච්චි කරනවා පොත හඳුන්ලා දෙනකොට because
Mhm.
gender කියන concept එක queer is a gender concept and gender is a cultural construct. Sex is biological as we know, but gender is always culturally constructed. And
Mhm.
එතකොට අපි gender identity, queerness, or even for that matter, straightness, heteronormity ගැන කතා කරනකොට ඒක cross cultural conversation එකක්. Because if it's a cultural construct, අපි දෙන ඒකේ තියෙන වෙන දෙයක් ගැන හඳුල්ලා දෙන්න යනකොට ඒක cross cultural conversation එකක්. ඒ හින්දා
Mhm.
big umbrella එකක් හැටියට ගත්තොත් the book is a cross cultural book, but in that
Mhm.
the gender plays a very important role because gender ගැන තමයි අපි පොතේ කතා කරන්නේ. And
Mhm.
ඒකෙන් තියෙන ඒ අපි කියන්නේ intersectionality කියලා කියන concept එක පාවිච්චි කරනවා. කියන්නේ මොනවා හරි මතවාද දෙකක් අතරට හවු වෙන කොටස. So අපි කියමුකෝ
Mhm.
immigrant කෙනෙක් හෝ queer කෙනෙක් or a woman who is in a different employment role. ඒ වගේ මොනවා හරි එකක් ගැන ඒ intersectional space එක ගැන අපි කතා කරනකොට මේ පොත ඒ
Mhm.
intersectional space එක ගැන තමයි කතා කරන්නේ. ඒ space එකේ ඉඳලා කන්ටෙන්ට් දේවල් දිහා බලනකොට එතකොට අර හාස්‍ය
Mhm.
ජනක අර satire අර criticisms එහෙම තියෙනවා. ඒවා
Mhm.
ඒවා හරි unique මම නම් දකින විදිහට because ඒ intersectional spaces queer කෙනෙක් migrant කෙනෙක් ඒකනා බෑග්‍රවන්් එක එකනාගේ වෙනස්කම් තියෙන හින්දා ඒ ඉන්ටර්සෙක්ෂනල් ස්පේස එක යුනික ඉතින් එතිනියා ලෝක දිහා බලන්නකොට දකින දේවල්
Mhm.
හරි වෙනස් ඉතිං
Mhm.
ඒහින තමයි මම ක්‍රිය කියලා කියන්නේ හැබැයි
Mhm.
you're right, you're absolutely right. I might be underselling the book by calling it queer because there
Yeah.
are a lot more stories.
Right. Because I think you shared one incident where like you reached out to this one of these book critics and he dismissed it, right? He didn't want to like critique your book because it's because of the theme of the book. But then again, he didn't even try to like read at least a few pages of it, just like I did. Right? If he did, I think he would have
Yes,
understood that
yes,
this
you're
is not
right.
about having gay sex or anything. It's hardly that, right? I mean, I don't know if there are things like that, but then again, from the few things that I read, it's practically describing a general issue, which is immigration, like
Yes.
things we go through as an immigrant and the conflicts that we have within us and everything. But yeah, I think
I
people are
haven't
missing
given
out.
you all the excerpts, Supul. There are quite a
Right.
few hot intimate scenes also in the book.
Okay, okay, okay. I stand corrected, but then, okay, now I get it. Why it's a queer book? It's more of a warning or a disclaimer, like a PG, like a rating or something, PG rating. But yeah, like but still, I understand. Yeah, so yeah, yeah. Okay, that makes sense then. But then again, still, yeah, I think yeah, it's to start with the first part of first. I think you shared me like 3 important points from that book related to immigration, and then I think the first part that you shared is related to the pressure that we get as a young Sri Lankan person from maybe parents, from maybe the society or relatives to seek success somewhere else other than your home country, right? So that's the pressure that I don't know if things has changed. I see things have changed a little bit. People have come to terms that okay, you don't really have to leave the country. I've seen more examples like that than I did. I don't know when I before I actually moved to Canada, before I migrated. But then again, more or less, I think I still see like a lot of people trying hard to get out of the country and seek success somewhere else in a more developed country. So that pressure is still there, right?
Yeah.
So the first section of the book that you shared is basically the pressure that this person gets from his mother, right?
Correct.
How she finds the Sri Lankan society as uncivilized
Yes.
based on her knowledge or based on her upbringing and based on all this colonial whatever that's
Ideologies that she has. Yes.
yeah, like planted in her throughout generations, right? So which makes sense, right? Which
Correct.
makes sense given where we are brought up, right? Where like it makes sense that in the society that we were brought up, basically.
And
So I
and you're
want to talk
absolutely
about that
right.
first section.
Yeah, and you're
Yeah.
absolutely right. I mean, the fact that she speaks about it, and when you read, you'll say that what we have in Sri Lanka, what we have is something not refined. Always there's something better that is outside there, and that that
Right.
value addition or that ideal product can only be obtained outside the country, never inside. And I think that I
Mm-hmm.
mean, not wanting to go back to our previous recording, but essentially that is a very key element of colonization because when you
Right.
look at you don't have any value addition that happens in the colony. You only take the raw
Mm-hmm.
products out of the colony. So you will, even if you take tea, it's processed and
Mm,
sold out of the colonizer's country, not from locally.
right.
So even
Right.
rubber, everything, you only take the raw material. It's crude stuff that you take out. Crude, the
Right.
emphasis on the word crude, because you can never have anything
True.
refined in the colonies. The
Right.
refining process has to be only be given by the colonizer. So that
Mm,
ඒ මතවාදෙන් we have grown up ලංකාවේ වුණත් අපි මිනිස්සු හැටියට වුණත් අපි රිෆයින් වෙන්නේ අපි දියුණු වෙන්නේ ලංකාව ඇතුළත වෙන්න බැහැ. Always it has to be
mm-hmm.
outside because ඒක despite having the genetics, the cultural conditioning growing up in the country, it is
Right.
never the place for it. So
Place. Yeah.
conditioning we have been culturally conditioned, again a cultural conditioning
Right.
constructed throughout
Yeah.
our youth, and we see that a lot with all those education fairs that they talk about. I mean, you see all these young people
Mm,
doing education fairs. This country is having a fair, that country is having a fair. Not that I have anything against it, but it's always sold as, oh, that's the only way that you can become a better person.
mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Like when you said it, like the crude, right? Like
Yeah.
so when you say it, yeah, like even the visualization that I have it in my mind is there's a ceiling, right? There's a ceiling when it comes to our own country, like the ceiling of where you can grow. Like you basically if you grow, you have to grow beyond that. You have to move out. That's the not that not that it's accurate. That's that's a perception we have. That's that thing that um what do you call it? Invisible
The glass
limit
ceiling
or
is
the
absolutely
invisible
there. Yeah.
a glass ceiling. Yeah. So
You're
it
absolutely
feels
right.
like we hit there. Yeah.
Yeah.
We saw
And I mean,
right.
I
So
won't say, I will be even bold enough to say that we assume that it is sort of hidden, it's not very overt. No, it is very much there and it has been put up there
right.
and it is built and it's maintained there so that you can never go
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
beyond that. So,
Yeah. Yeah.
I mean, there's a lot of work that this is not related to the book at all, but particularly
Right.
scientists who do work in China and Southeast
Mm-hmm,
Asia, in order for them to get
mm-hmm,
promoted. So they may be doing great
mm-hmm,
work, but they always have to
mm-hmm.
go and work in a lab in the US or UK as a low level technician, even just
Mm,
for a short period, because only when they
right.
go out that they get the tick that they can move up. So that glass ceiling,
Right.
the passage of the glass ceiling is never vertical. You have
Right.
to move horizontally
Right.
and then overcome it. So it's
Right.
inbuilt into the mechanism. So even so
Right.
with this, what you're saying, the mother story here
Mm-hmm.
is highlighting that. So I completely hear you.
Right. Exactly. So yeah, let's actually before we actually before we go and do the book reading of that passage, I just wanted to say that it's sort of infused into our genes also. We think that we have to work with at least a non-brown person somewhere else if you want to get genuine experience or genuine exposure to whatever that's not there in Sri Lanka, right?
Validation almost.
Because Sri Lanka can never get there because it's not a white
White
place.
place.
It's not a country. Yeah. So you have to go to a white place because that's where the things happen, right?
Absolutely.
So
It's like a white
I,
stick of
I don't know
approval.
if approval. You
Yeah, a
need
white
the
stick
white
of
approval.
approval.
You need the white approval of anything, even yeah. So yeah, let's go. That first part, like it's very relatable. Even though my mother was not that mother that's in the book. She never like pressed me to go anywhere. Like she didn't press me to do anything. She just she's been there as a mother. She just didn't tell me what to do in a way. Not because I don't know. I don't call it. I mean, unintentionally good quality in her. She didn't do it intentionally. But she didn't pressure me to do anything. Just that's because that's how she is. But she was a really good mother. But yeah, but I had that internal voice in me that I can relate that internal voice in me to the mother that you have in the book. That always pressured me to go out of the country. You have to go. Like you can't stay with these people in Sri Lanka. You have to go out and be successful. That's my internal voice. So that mother was in my head. She wasn't the actual mother, but then again, yeah, that mother was in my head. So yeah, let's actually read that passage from the book. I think a lot of people can relate to it. Yeah.
Okay, thank you. So the excerpt that Supun is saying comes from the first chapter in the book. I'll read it. My mother's family was Sinhalese, which enjoyed the privileges of the ethnic majority of the country. Growing up and educated in metropolitan Colombo had, however, anglicized her outlook to life. She admired all things Western, fashion, mannerisms, and above all, diction. She insisted on severely correcting my English, even at a very young age. No wonder this country has become like this. Sinhala speaking, beetle chewing Godeyas everywhere. So why would any decent person want to live here? I don't know. All the educated people keep going away and never coming back, she complained. I heard my mother's unspoken words, a silent lament for the friendships and the relatives she had lost to foreign shores over the years. I remembered the stories of her childhood, old stories of large outbound migrations of English speaking Sri Lankans in post independence years following 1948. These were repeated and amplified by Tamil speaking Sri Lankans during the Civil War, which raged in the 1980s. The Barb, in her comment, was a witness to recent stories of economic immigrants across all Sri Lankan ethnicities seeking better homes away from their homeland. I sensed her pain and saw through her bilateral anguish of home and foreign between English and Sinhalese, and I knew how her triad would end. I am telling you, once you get your degree, stay there. Don't come back here. Ane, please. My mother's repetitive use of please and its Sinhalese counterpart, Ane, was a firm command disguised as an empathetic plea.
That last part. So අරනේ ප්ලීස් එන්න එපා කියන එක නිකං එකක් ඇවිල්ලා මහිතන්නේ මට තේරෙන්නේ ඒ කියන්නේ එයා කියන්නේ ඒක ඇත්තටම ජෙනුවින්ලි නේ කියන්නේ පුතාට කියන්නේ ආදරයට. It feels like it's something that she wish she did also. Like she wanted to escape this whole mess also.
Yes.
So whatever that she believes in, I don't think she likes it also. All right. I don't think she liked the life that she lived also. Like, I don't think whatever that she, basically she describes it also. Like she discusses whatever that she sees. Like,
Yes.
Yeah, she didn't want to live in this country also. So she is trying to like force her son to like do something that she couldn't, right? අම්මට එයාට කරගන්න බැරි වෙච්ච දෙයක් කොහොම හරි බලෙන් කරන්න හදනවා වගේ එකකුත් මට තේරෙනවා. මම කියාගෙන ආවේ මේ එහෙම එතන එහෙම නෝ දැන් ඔයා කියවනකොට මට ඒක තේරෙන එක එහෙම හැංගීමකුත් මට එනවා නිකන් ඒක පුතා ලව්ව කරගන්න හදනවා වගේ එක.
අර it's like a vicarious living through your children නේද? ගොඩක් දෙමව්පියෝ තමුන්ට කරන්න ආස කරපු දේවල් maybe ආසාවෙන් හිටියා කරන්න හැකියාවක් තිබුණේ නැහැ. ආසයි හැබැයි උනන්දුවක් තිබුණේ නැහැ වෙන්න පුළුවන්. Various reasons they didn't do those things, but they want ඒක ළමුන්ගේ ළමයි හරහා ලබා ගැනීමේ හැකියාවක් ගොඩක් දෙමව්පියන්ට තියෙන අර vicarious parenting කියලා කියන්නේ. ඉතින් අපි ඕක ගොඩාක් දකිනවා sports people are in a thing, they would want to be a professional sports people, but for certain reasons they may have not, like I said before, been able to achieve that. ඊට පස්සේ ඉතින් තමුන්ගේ ළමයි කොහොම හරි ඒක කරව ගන්න හදන්නේ. We see that also with musicians. So that vicarious, and I think, I mean, given the psychology between most gay men and their mothers, I like the fact that you earlier, Supun, not that my mother said it, but I hear that voice is in my head, the social voice is in my head. And there's this very popular American Indian comedian, Vidur Kapoor, who says, my mother has 3 homes, one in India, one in UK, and one in my head. So, 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 so I feel that most gay men have that very strong connection with their mother, and I sometimes feel that mother, they are trying to be exactly what their mothers wanted them to be. So there is that trying to deliver that expectation more than a straight son.
Right.
I feel so.
Yeah.
That is there, and you're right. There is that anguish in her voice. Almost පිළිකුලෙක් නේ කතා කරන්නේ, almost පිළිකුලෙක් කතා
Yeah.
කරන්නේ ඉන්න තැනක.
You can taste the bitterness in her tongue, literally, right? The disgust feeling that she had in her mouth. You can taste it, sort of. I mean, as a Sri Lankan, you can relate to it also. Like that's probably why this book is probably like should be like received by a lot of Sri Lankans, because you understand what's in this story. Like it's more or less your story. Like yes, the fine details might be different from my story, but then again, the overall the overall story that you're telling through that book is very relatable. That's everyone's case, every immigrant's case. Like, yeah, unless you
And
have
that's
like a lot of money and you
question
just
that I keep getting. That's a question
Right.
that I keep getting, because the book's title, for example, I'll just bring it close. So it's called A Butterfly, not The Butterfly. And I have made sure that the A is a lowercase simple a. And the reason
Okay.
for that is I want it not to be a story for one person or one person's story. It's a story for everybody, and it's everybody's story. So it's just a butterfly. It's anything for,
Just
so,
about
and
yeah.
ideally
Doesn't
the
have to be
story,
queer also.
sorry,
Doesn't have to be queer also. Doesn't have to be queer
queer.
also. Yeah, it's just it's queer because the person is queer and he has gay sex maybe, but that's the only queer thing that's there. And sex is sex, like whatever sex you have, like everybody has sex unless you're like asexual. But yeah, like so I think it's relatable to anyone, queer or not, right? So
I'll send you a few of the excerpts of those chapters also.
Okay. Cool. Okay. Awesome. So yeah, like talking about the pressure, right? So so I also want to share that before I left, the feeling that I have about immigration, like the efforts that I took because of that feeling, right? I always saw that we were talking that I always saw the grass is greener on the other side. Like it was only greener. Like I did not see any black spots. I did not see any like, dried out spots or like, grassless spots or anything. It was just really beautiful, greener and nourisher, and like it's greener. It looked more beautiful. It looked perfect. Not like where I lived on this side. It looked much better. And whenever you look up about a country, so for example, like the first country that I wanted to migrate to was Australia, and it didn't work out, mostly because like the consultants that we did go to, like Surang and I were already like we were having a relationship, so we were looking to move together. But then again, the consultants that we went to, like they didn't accept the case, like because it's too complicated for them. They're more profitable with more straightforward ones.
Very straightforward cases.
And then we went to another consultant who did like Canadian immigration. He said okay, but then he also said it with a disclaimer. Okay, I can't be sure. Like, this is a very I haven't done much of many of these cases, so it's just a hit and miss, right? We didn't go through them that also, like we didn't have enough money to just throw away at some throw at some consultant who's not sure also. So but then again, things happened and we somehow like migrated, right? But then again, I remember that feeling, right? Like it looked like when I was looking up for these countries to migrate to, you only see all these good things.
Of course.
You think that, okay, also like when you go to their websites and things like that, the way they portray immigration as, it's not what it actually is. Like, I'm not saying immigration is bad or anything. It helps you. There's so many good things about immigration, and there's obviously better quality of life, of course. I'm not dismissing any of that. It's just that the thing that they portray as immigration for a country that, for example, for a country like Canada, immigration is a way to bring in more people, to expand their economy so that they will pay more tax. So it's about money. It's not that, but whatever that they portray as immigration, it's money for them, right? If they believed, if they were true to what they portray as immigration, they would let us bring us parents, because we are not gonna like the fact that they make it much harder to come with your parents is again money. I mean, it doesn't make sense to bring in your parents and the
Because your
government spending
parents are
tax
a
money on my
liability, no?
parents.
Economic
Liability,
liability. Whereas you
right?
are, you can contribute to the economy. You are working. You are young. So they are a
Right,
liability. Why do they want them?
liability, exactly. And but then they know that you will have to go back to take care of your parents at some point. But then again, by that time, you've worked here, you've contributed to their community, you've paid so much taxes, you've done your part, and they don't care. Like, you can stay or you can leave and take care of your parents. That's how I see immigration as. Like, it's just extracting the best part of your life as taxes or whatever, and as a contribution to the economy, and then then you
Absolutely.
just figure out, right, the rest of your
And
life. But then again, but you don't see it before you migrate.
no,
The
it's not
feeling that
shown
you
to
have
you.
is the excitement. It's not shown
I,
to you.
I think
You
it's
have
not
to
about
like come here
seeing.
and
There's
see it.
another side to it because, like you say, you don't see it. That is true. But for you to see something, it has to be shown to you as well. But not that they hide it, but it's not essentially made very visible. And I mean, there's a wonderful example of this. I mean, we talk about immigration 1990s, 1970s onwards, we have a lot of mass movement along. But there's a lot of mass immigration that happened post World War II, particularly to Britain. And
Mhm,
now Britain being an empire at that time, they Loke Purama, they were talking about what British
mhm,
culture is, English culture. So we learn English pot කියවන්න වුණා. So අපි
mhm,
පොඩි
mhm.
කාලේ the books that we read, like Enid Blyton stories, any of those stories, අපි කවදාවත් කෙත අඳුරු වැස්සෙන් සීතල වෙච්ච තැනක් ගැන ඒගොල්ලෝ කතා කරන්නේ නැහැ. It's all about those famous fights, going for
Yeah,
picnics, sitting under the sun,
right.
swimming in the water. But that
Yeah.
type of England only exists for a very few months each year, sometimes even a few weeks each year. So there are lots
Mhm,
of
mhm,
stories of particularly people in Africa who are used to, who migrated to Britain
mhm.
for various reasons, particularly for political reasons that they had to move to. They go and say,
Mm.
where is this place we read about? It's not there.
Yeah.
There are the green pastures because these people were settled in London where it was dingy, dark, dirty,
Mhm.
unhealthy, in little houses. So where are the
Right.
rolling hills, the streams, the apple trees, the dogs and the horses running freely? Where is this England? And they did not know. Similarly,
Right.
when we go to these education fairs that they have, which I don't know about Canada, but I know from Australia, and I mean I think I am qualified enough to say this. I think it's deception because you see all of these
Mhm,
students learning, interacting, and it's a stage setup situation. But most of the international students who come, they are struggling to find uh, money to live, struggling to find
mhm,
food to eat. struggling to keep warm during winter, and all those social pressures that they have to manage, finding money for their
Mhm.
tuition fees and so forth. None of that is shown in those colorful brochures. And I
No.
don't think that the authorities, ඒගොල්ලෝ නොදන්නව නෙමෙයි. They know about it 150% or
Mm.
200%, but they
Mhm.
don't show that side. It's this completely
Right.
mythical story that is shown, that students are seated.
Right.
And so again, like you said,
Mhm.
we don't see it, but I also think it's not shown. It's not shown.
Sure. Yeah. So it's almost like it's I think it's safe to say that it's like legal exploitation or something. Right? We get exploited
It's legally
legally.
deceptive. Sort of there are ways that
Yeah.
people and again, I think another group of people we blame the education bodies, we blame immigration, we blame the government, but I
Mhm.
think it's also another group that is heavily responsible are the immigrants themselves, who very rarely tell the true story.
True
ගොඩාක් බොරු
story. Yeah.
කියනවානේ. I mean කට්ටිය
Mhm.
සමහරක් කට්ටිය ගොඩාක් මහන්සි වෙලා වැඩ කරනවා. but ලංකාවට
Ah.
හොලිඩේ එකට ගිහිල්ලා පෙන්නන්නේ that they live a super luxurious life,
Yeah.
which is
That's true.
false. ඉතින්
Because
ඒක
like
රැවටීමක්.
i- i- it's same. It's a bias that you have, right? Even if you buy something, if you buy something expensive, for example, you have a bias to like defend that product, even though it's the shittiest thing on earth, right? You try to defend it. Usually, right? It's a human nature, right? So you don't go. I mean, immigrate, for example, immigrate into Canada. For me, like it drained so much of my energy, and because I had to do my research. I think I spent so much time and energy and all that to understand this the process, be very specific about the process, you know fill up all the gaps that I had so that the process would go smoothly, and that was a lot of work. Like it was not simple. When you go through that and finally like drag yourself to this first world country, you're not gonna say that oh shit, what did I do? I did a mistake. I mean, I'm not saying it's a mistake or anything. I'm not saying that I don't have a better quality of life. I do. It's just that it's not the same thing that I was promised, right?
And
So
promise,
that's what
yeah.
and there are a lot of other problems also. There's racism. There's having to live like second class citizen, even though you are a citizen of the country. So there's all that. But then again, yeah. So you're not gonna talk about all that. Sometimes people don't even see them. Like
Yes.
most of these people, I don't think they see the fine. They don't read between lines enough to see these things probably. So, but then again, also like they don't want to tell. They don't want to.
Yeah.
They don't want to say that you've done a mistake. No,
Yeah.
a person would hardly accept that. I mean, it's not a mistake, but then again, at least to some extent, it's not. It's
It's
not what you expected, right?
absolutely. I mean, it's not as drastic, but a parallel, an extended parallel could be
Right.
drawn with domestic abuse
Right.
cases. No? I mean, there are lots of
Uh-huh.
people, ගොඩක් කට්ටිය බැට කනවා. හැබැයි ලැජ්ජාව හින්දා කියන්නේ නැහැ. There are a lot of people who do
Yeah.
that. They are humiliated to talk about it.
Right.
Some, they become
Mhm.
blindedly happy. Sort of they live in this illusion saying, no, though I'm මට ගුටි කෑවත්, it's okay, it's good, it's safe. And they live
Mhm.
in that
Mhm.
space. So I
Yeah.
think whether it's saying migrants are being beaten up, maybe not physically, but sometimes emotionally and mentally. Yeah. So that is
Immigration as this evil thing. No, I have a
no,
good. I mean, I'm not saying that I have a really bad life. I mean, I do have a
no.
much better. I do like have much better quality of life here than I don't think I'm not boasting or anything, but I don't think if I go back to Sri Lanka, like I would be as comfortable as I am right now. I mean,
Yes.
honestly speaking, there's that conflict also. That's also a conflict that
Yes.
we can talk about. I think that's also called, I don't know, re-entry depression or something. I don't know
Right.
if that's
I don't know.
but then again, yeah, I'm not trying to say, yeah, like I don't think we are trying to say that
No,
immigration
we are
is
not
this
doing that.
really bad evil thing. It's just that there is a mismatch, or there's
Yes.
a what do you call in what's shown to us and what it actually is. So
Correct.
there's some hypocrisy in that, or there's some yeah. So going to
Yes.
the second, yeah,
Yeah,
go ahead.
please.
No, I wanted to
Mm,
go to the second part of
Yeah.
the point, but you were saying something, right?
And it's a good segue that that talking about that illusion with which migrants live. Sometimes it is
Right.
a self-inflicted illusion. Sometimes it's
Right.
because they have no other alternative. ඒගොල්ලන් ඒකටම that's the only way that they can survive. Because if they
Right.
එහෙමම negative එක ගැන හිතියොත් their survival in
Mm-hmm.
that place is also not going to be effective,
Not going to
sustainable.
work. Right.
And
Right.
like you said, there are there are many positives living in a current country, in a
Mm-hmm.
developed country, in a first world country, in terms of
Right.
security, in terms of various amenities, infrastructure, which we take for granted.
Mm.
Uh, but at the same time, I think what you're talking also is about that genuine connection to the land, which you
Mm-hmm.
never
Mm-hmm.
are able to build as a migrant. And when you're very conscious of that, it becomes a little difficult.
Right.
So, um,
Difficult.
but I think
Yeah. Yeah.
you beautifully brought it to the second reading about again this illusion
Right.
of migration and
Mm.
people sort of believing that they are having the very best and not and refusing to acknowledge any negatives. So it's a
Right.
situation where what you're talking about, I think, is very different. Where you're saying there are negatives and there are positives. We are acknowledging both, but then there's
Both.
a
Yeah.
very strong group or a large group who says there are no negatives, it's only positive. And that
Right.
is a question.
Right. And
So,
they fail to see most of these very problematic things also in immigration. Right.
correct. Correct. So, this is from a later chapter in the book called Lies. And just a bit of background context, the protagonist,
Mm-hmm.
he is now he's on his university vacation, and he's visiting his uncle who lives in Queensland, in Brisbane. And this chapter is said there. Uh, Vroom, vroom. The vacuum cleaner noisily sucked the carpet in the corridor outside the women's toilet. I emerged from the last cubicle carrying a caddy full of disinfectants in one gloved hand while a toilet brush dripped from the other. Uncle, I finished the gents and the ladies both, I announced into the corridor as the vacuum cleaner inhaled its last. My uncle switched off the vacuum motor strapped to his back and bent down to unplug it from the power outlet on the wall. The power cable, emptied of its virility, dangled limply. Good job. Many hands make light work. His yellow teeth broadly grinned. He picked up the cleaning equipment as he walked towards a narrow box room at the far end of the corridor. Let's get these into the janitorial office, and we can be out of here. My uncle was my mother's elder brother. He owned and operated a commercial cleaning business in Brisbane. His business card proclaimed proprietor and executive director. His one-man enterprise prestigiously siphoned dust from carpets, scoured filth from lavatories, and emptied the bins in half a dozen office buildings outside Brisbane city limits. He visited half of these buildings after working hours and the other half before the sun awoke. My uncle pompously swiped his after-hours access card as we exited the small ground floor office building we had just cleaned. The cool, early morning breeze swept away the smells of disinfectant that clung to my blue overalls. They were hand-me-downs from my uncle. His newer overalls were slightly bluer than mine. On his breast pocket, just like mine, green embroidery displayed the pretentious and oxymoronic name of his commercial cleaning business. Opulent Janitors, a name which he thought rendered exclusivity to his business. In the car park, we peeled off our overalls and placed them in the boot of his car. My uncle didn't wish the menial affiliation of his overalls to disrepute the imitation leather interior of his Audi Quattro. I pondered the purpose of the four interlock circles of the metal-plated plastic on the steering wheel. Were they there to remind drivers in case they forgot the vehicle's luxury branding? That's the second excerpt that I had chosen for you. Uh,
Right. Like when you were reading it, it reminded me this incident that happened. Maybe I'll talk about that, and maybe we can
Yes.
come back
Yes,
to
no,
your
please.
exact story, incident that you read. So I think I shared with you earlier that අපි මේ කැනඩාවට ආවට පස්සේ අපි මුලින්ම for one reason is that we were sort of escaping a certain, I don't know, I don't want to call it the culture, I don't know, but escaping something that we didn't like, right? We didn't like the way we were treated. Both Surang and I, we didn't like the way we were treated. We didn't like the way we were. We had to live like second class citizens because of our sexuality. We didn't like the fact that we had to always put ourselves second to a more superior, you know,
Yeah.
group of people, like who think that they are entitled in the society just because they were born as certain way. That's what we wanted to escape, right? One group of people that I escaped is my relatives, right? I didn't like my relatives. I didn't, in both my mother's or father's side, I didn't like them much. Especially the father's side, like I literally hated them. So I didn't want to come. I didn't want. So we escaped that, right? So we came here not to be back in that unsafe environment. We found it unsafe also. So because of that reason, we didn't connect with the Sri Lankan community here. Like there are temples, there are Sri Lankan communities, there are like dancel, there are musical shows, there are like Sasanakili and all that, right? We avoided those things because it's trauma, right? Going back to those environments, going back to those communities would trigger our trauma, basically. Whatever that we had to go through as kids, as young adults and all that. But then again, there were certain times that we had to visit this temple, one temple, because of a monk that we were friends with. We are friends with. We are still friends with him. So during one of these visits, there was this other person who talked to us. We were talking to the monk, and then that other person came up to us, and they started talking to us, started to getting to know us, and suddenly he assumed we were there to look for jobs also. We were there to meet the monk, right? He assumed that we were there looking for jobs, and he was like, "ඔගොල්ලෝ තතන්ට ගිහිල්ලා මේ අර ගොල්ලන් හඳුරගෙන මේ බලන්න ඒගොල්ලන්ට මොනවා හරි රස්සාවක්." So I was like, "No, I'm already working." Right? And then he asked us where we live, and we said we just moved from downtown to Scarborough, where we live, which is suburbs. And he was like, so you went back to hoods or whatever. I think the term he used is hood or
Right.
hoods. I think it's a derogative term that you
Wow.
use to suburbs where like ethnic people live, I think.
Yes.
So he immediately was like, I think from that first comment that I made, when he asked me to go meet those people, from that first comment I made that I'm already working, I think that he probably already got a little offended,
Offended?
maybe. So
Yeah.
that's why he probably used that.
What
He's
type
been a
of, was he
derogative
part
of.
of a construction group as well?
I think they know each other.
All right.
I think
Right.
yeah, they know
Right.
each other. They're relatives or something.
Ah.
At least they're from the same class, right? So they
Right.
know each other. That's why he asked me to like go talk to them. It just
Because
reminded me. It
yeah,
just reminded me that incident when you were reading through that. But then again, yeah, we can come back to that specific part of that book.
the book.
It-
Yeah.
Yeah.
I
So
mean,
the
what you
success that
said,
we.
yeah.
Yeah.
And what you say resonates very well, because I mean, these people, not putting them down, but after all, they
Mm-hmm.
are, yeah, subcontractors. They are doing some work there, but they see themselves as very, very important. And in that
Very
importance, they
successful.
see and
Yeah.
successful, and that they see that in
Yeah.
that they have the right to look down on others as less
Others.
successful and definitely less important than them, whom they can pick and
Right.
choose and use for their work. And I
Yeah.
mean, I know we spoke about this last time as well, but that is a very key feature in colonization. I mean, you
Mm-hmm.
oftentimes you would have um, if you take in Sri Lanka what happened during various European colonizations, we'll talk about the later periods. So they created an aristocracy. The British created an aristocracy in Sri Lanka. So we have the Muhandirams, the Arachis, the various roles that were created were not traditional Sri Lankan aristocracies. The Mudalis, particularly, people they were created British. They initially started off as um, people who bearers or servants to the British people who came in. But then they took on these aristocratic titles and they were able to amass wealth because they were the main connection to the Sri Lankan community and the main form of exploiters. They could because they translated. They were court translators oftentimes, and so the Mudalias of the gate they were court translators. So they would then translate and they would tell things. When the British didn't
Correct.
understand it, and we had to understand the colonizers who came were far from educated people in Britain. They were not cultural. They were just there to come and make money. So you have
Right.
the same mentality of these people who take using Sri Lankan students or people who they see as less or more vulnerable, not less but more vulnerable, and abusing them or exploiting them to benefit the country of migration, not supporting their own community. And the fact that they are
No.
using a cultural hub, the temple, to
Yeah.
for their enterprising work is very funny. And in this
Yeah.
excerpt that I read, I mean, the uncle, so he has, there's a bit of a backstory. So he migrated when the white Australia policy was abolished in the 1970s. He was a man who didn't value education. So when you read the chapter, you see he's always in conflict with the protagonist, the main character, because the protagonist has come to study, whereas the uncle, though he has lived so long in Australia, has not done higher studies. So he sees him, there's a big chip on the shoulder. නිකම් මදිකමක් වගේ පේනවා යාට යාගේ නෙවියුත් එක්කම උනත්. ඉතින් හැමතිස්සෙම නෙවිව පහත් කරන්න හදනවා. නෙවිව පහත් කරන්න හදනවා. හැබැයි ඒ පහත් කිරීමේදී the arguments that he brings හරි මෝඩ arguments. And it also resonates with things that he does නිකන් යාගේ cleaning business. He calls it opulent janitor. So
Opulent. Yeah.
an opulent person will not be cleaning. So there are sort of oxymoron, contradictory, paradoxic things that are in that term as well. The fact that he wants to drive a very posh vehicle and go to be seen around, but at the same time he wants to hide his job. So he quickly removes his cleaning overalls and hides it in this place.
Yeah.
And the fact that
He has an enterprise that he's not proud of.
exactly, as an enterprise that he's not proud of. And exactly. And again, making himself very successful and giving himself success. No one has given. He has made himself managing director and sort of chief executive officer of this small thing where he's the only employee.
That reminds me of this one uncle. It reminds me of this one uncle I had from my father's side who appointed himself as the leader of the whole gang. He takes lead, like he self-appointed himself, like, and eventually people starting going to him for all the decisions and all the controlling the herd and all that, that whole thing. Okay, it's a different story, but then again, it just reminded me of him also, which gave me a bad taste in my mouth again anyways. So all of this history is coming back to me.
I mean, these stories that we are sharing are common. They resonate. They relate to many people. We have all had experiences that we can maybe not exactly the same, but
but that
something that
uncle is everywhere. That uncle is everywhere.
And that is why I gave the book a subtitle. I mean, the subtitle of the book reads, "Circumstances make someone's fiction another's reality." So we can always find some reality even in some story that is shared here, because they are our stories, and all human stories are that as humans we can relate to one another in these. So it's a very so I'm keeping off the first point that you started off with. I am underselling the book by calling it a queer story. He's coming back to me again and again.
There's nothing. I mean, of course, like you have to call it a queer book because of those, the parts that you talked about. But then again, I mean, if it's the sex, that's, I don't know, like making that a queer book. Still, like
Not
sex is
only
sex. Like everybody has sex.
it's not
Yeah.
only the sexual intimacy that is making, it's that I believe that the character, the way he's able to see these things because of his
Right.
gender identity.
Yeah. Yeah.
So
No,
if
I
he were
agree. Yeah.
otherwise, he would not see it in this way. And I think
Yeah.
I don't
That's a
want to
good
talk
point.
about gender identity as being his defining characteristic, but the fact that he's
Right.
gender because he's not
Right.
part of the mainstream and neither is he part of a minor. He's sitting in the middle. And that unbalanced
Mm-hmm.
perspective is what is allowing him these unique insights
Right.
into these places. So that is
Yeah. Yeah.
my
Yeah.
point when I talk about the book as a cross-cultural book, because he's
Mm.
sitting between cultures. And so true,
Yeah.
that
That's
culture is
a good
based on
point.
gender, but without that, he would not be able to tell this story.
Yeah, that makes like it makes sense now. Like, yeah, I mean, it makes sense that how he sees things, the way he sees things.
Yes. Yeah.
Because that's how I think I can relate to it also, because when you see something that is not, that doesn't, I don't know if resonates is the word for that. I think, I mean, like,
Yeah.
uh, that's not yours, right? That what මට ගෝචර වෙන විදියට නෙමෙයි නම් දේවල් සිද්ධ වෙන්නේ, even though like you have to live in that society, you see that I think you start to see these things sarcastically, right?
Correct.
Because you start to see more the truth in all these
Yeah.
absurd things,
Gaps
right?
පේනවා.
Instead of
You see more gaps.
he does pain
He
gaps.
does
Yeah,
පේනවා.
you see the
පේනවා.
gaps and how fragile all these things and how insecure these people are and all that. අර ඒකේ ජීවත් වෙද්දී මං හිතන්නේ මම ස්ට්‍රේට් පිරිමියෙක් වෙලා හිටියා නම් මම කැමති කෙල්ලොන්ට නම් ඔය සමාජය හදලා තියෙන මොඩල් එකට මම ෆිටින් වෙන කෙනෙක් නම් මට ඔය දේවල් නොපෙනෙන්න ඉඩ තිබ්බා. ඒ කියන්නේ පෙනෙන්න
අනිවාර්යෙන්.
හේතුවක් නැහැනේ.
පෙනෙන
පෙනෙන්න
හේතුවක්
හේතුවක්
නැහැ.
නැහැ.
Exactly. I mean, you're spot on. පෙනෙන්න කිසි
Yeah.
හේතුවක් නැහැ.
Yeah.
And ඒ
Yeah.
හේතුව
That's
හැදිලා
true.
තියෙන්නේ අර intersectional ඉඩකඩ, because that person is in a gap
Yeah.
themselves.
Yeah.
So
like the still the huge problem that I have is like when you say this is a queer book, people are dismissing it and they have to read this because
maybe
they get
if I
the real
sort of-
perception of it.
maybe if I think I shared a story with an interesting Sri Lankan lady with you, at whom I met at an event here in Canberra, who
Right.
when I introduced the book as a gender diverse, I not even use the word queer. I said it's a book about cultural issues and it's about culture and about gender equality. As soon as she heard the two words gender equality, she said, "Oh, that book is a dangerous topic. We should not talk. It's too deep," she said. "We should avoid it." And I said, "Why?" Then she said, "It's not part of Sri Lankan Buddhist culture," she said. And I said, "But I can't understand. What do you mean?" She said, "No, those topics are too dangerous. We should not go there. We should just avoid it." So maybe people like that who want to be naive and I don't know, simplistic, calling this book a Sri Lankan cultural book might be able to get it onto their bedside table, and it will be easier to shock those people better than if I give them the name and they didn't buy it. So I might take your marketing strategy.
Yeah, I think you can use it as a marketing strategy where like you call this like a Sri Lankan cross-cultural book, right? Yeah, I mean, you're not lying. You just they figure out it when they throughout. I mean, I don't know, like halfway through into the book. I don't know, like when they figure out it is a queer book, but then again, it's too late. They've already read the good part of it.
And to be very honest, I'm pretty sure they will enjoy it. Because most people who are resistant and who come across as being anti are actually people who are quite. I mean, they are more interested than people who are queer. To be very honest.
Yeah. Given the BL scene, right? Do you know that the BL stories and all that?
Yeah.
So you know that, right? Like a lot of Gen Z
the boy love stories,
people.
no?
Boy love stories, yeah.
Yeah.
It's a huge thing. I didn't know about it
Yeah.
until recently, like that it's a huge thing among Gen Z
Southeast Asia.
generation, right? And
Yeah.
it's not even within the community, right? A lot of, I think, a lot of girls like
Yeah.
BL stories.
Yes.
So if a lot of girls like BL stories, I'm sure aunties would like that too. I mean,
I'm pretty
logically.
sure. I'm pretty sure.
Yeah.
She might hide it. She might hide the book in a, I don't know, some religious text and use it as a cover, and she might be reading it. We don't know.
Dhammapada or something. Yeah.
Yeah.
Cool. Yeah. So the third part is the most interesting part actually. So like this absurd thing called weddings, right? Like straight weddings. Like the things that they go through to, I mean, the money that they spend
Oh.
just to show something, just to prove something. I don't know what they're going to prove, something that they don't have, or I don't know what they're trying to prove. I mean, we are more or less, everyone's like that. We just show off. We try to, try to say that, we always don't like portray whatever the reality, right? We portray something else. So, but I understand. But then again, this is a little bit extreme when it comes to Sri Lankan weddings,
Yes.
right? So I think that the third part is about that, how they are
Yes.
planning a wedding, and how that person, the main character of this book, how he sees that
Yeah.
sarcastically again. So
Sarcastically, yeah.
I kind of enjoyed that part also, that you can read that part also.
Yes. So just a bit of background. So this uncle who we just
Yeah.
spoke about, his son,
Oh yeah.
who is called Sana Boy, is getting married. Now, Sana Boy has
Right.
lived in Australia. He's pretty much an Australian bloke. And he has
Mm-hmm.
found this girlfriend, and now they are living together. They are very much westernized in their outlook, but they are planning on a Sri Lankan wedding without any understanding about what Sri Lanka means. So there's a so, and as we know, there are, particularly in the migrant communities all over the world, not only Sri Lankans. We see this a lot with Indian migrants, South Asian migrants, Southeast Asian migrants having these traditional weddings in their new homelands, and they are just quite interesting from the point of view of how they try to win it. And like Supun, you were just
Right.
saying, they are very expensive. They are very expensive businesses. So this is where the story starts about
Right. Yeah.
the main character's cousin. My culturally confused cousin and his girlfriend had bought into the commodified import of a traditional Sri Lankan wedding ceremony. They, like most immigrants to Australia, sought misguided ethnic affiliations by hankering nostalgically for the lands of their ancestors. I imagined their nuptial fanfare, out of place rituals, misplaced customs, and substituted accoutrements. It would be as much a novelty to Australia as it was an oddity in the place Sana Boy and his bride to be believed his forefathers originated. Let me show you the jewelry she will be wearing. My aunt lifted a brochure and held it upside down. We stared into the topsy-turvy images of gilded metal and rhinestones. They are all antique Sri Lankan jewelry made especially here in Australia. She failed to realize the paradox. And this is the sari. It is custom made in Belgium. In an attempt to turn the brochure over, my aunt upset the screen at her end and almost disconnected the video call. That poor girl has never worn a sari. I don't know how she will manage to I don't know how she will manage to drape all that brocade lace. My aunt readjusted the video call to face the brochure. I told her if she's not careful on the day, she will look like a heels hoist. My aunt laughed at the image of her future daughter in law looking like an Australian rotary clothesline. Our Sana boy will be dressed like a Sinhalese king, chipped in my uncle, who didn't want to be outdone by his wife. I am sure they will look nice dressed like that at the wedding reception, My mother's voice was convincing. I'm guessing they will be changing after their church service. This time, her nose twitched visibly. Conspiratory silence, answered my mother from the other side of the voice call. Taken over by embarrassment, my aunt looked away, but her husband was unabashed. Sana boy and his girlfriend, I mean fiance, are too modern for these traditional church services. He described to his unimpressed sister the secular marriage ceremony that would take place in a marquee erected beside the jacuzzi in Sana boy's house. A lay celebrant would solemnize the marriage while guests stood and watched around the swimming pool. White doves, trailing blue ribbons, would fly into the sky, while geese with red ribbons around their necks would gaggle in the background. It will be just like an English country wedding, his wife collaborated. You know, like the ones in the movies, a typical English wedding in June. A misguided sentimentality had quintessentially English summer weddings overlooked the diametrically opposite season in the southern hemisphere. She mistook my father's cynical smile for encouragement and continued. Afterwards, there will be an open air buffet with finger food, and of course, I will be making the wedding cake. And there'll be plenty of good Scotch whiskey and French champagne, none of that rubbish Sri Lankan arak. My uncle smacked his thigh and guffawed a chorus to his wife.
So here's the queer thing in that part that you read. Of course, I'm gonna make the wedding cake, right? Like
So
that's
the
the
aunt
that's
is
the
very keen on making cakes, and
right.
she loves to make these wedding cakes. And
Okay.
so the main character's parents have come from Sri Lanka to go to this wedding. So they are visiting their
Okay.
son in Sydney, and they are
Right.
going to. So before they go, they're having a small video chat with main character's mother, uh,
Okay.
mother's brother, who is the uncle, who is the vacuum cleaning person
Mm-hmm.
before, and he's
Mm-hmm.
and they're telling them about all this ridiculous thing they are planning for the wedding, about how antique
Okay.
jewelry is made in Australia, and they're getting
Right.
sarees that are traditional made in Belgium. So very expensive, of
Belgium.
course,
Yeah.
but completely not
Right.
understanding culture, and
Right.
being very very silly about the whole process. But at the same time, what I like
Mm-hmm.
is they are talking about being traditional, but at the same time, looking like you started off the conversation, Supun, looking down on what Sri Lanka meant. So we will have in a traditional
Right.
wedding ceremony, but we won't have any of that rubbish arak. We will have French
Right.
and Scotch alcohol. So
Right.
it's very hypocritical. That's the word you used. I remember.
Yeah. Right. Right. And also the sarees, the traditional sarees made in Belgium, right? They're not from. I mean, they don't trust on the quality that from the the things that are coming from Sri Lanka, right?
No,
So
no,
they had to make sure that they were made in Belgium, but traditional, of course. But
traditional, of course.
yeah, traditional.
And for
Yeah.
someone who
I
has
mean,
never worn
because
a sari,
saree. Yeah.
yeah, and
Yeah.
where do these and so then the fact then the boy protagonist's mother, she says, oh, so she's a bit more traditional, so she's a complicated
Mm-hmm.
character as well. So like we started off talking about her saying
Mm-hmm.
that she hated everything in her home country. She's still very
Right.
traditional, and
Traditional.
so
Right.
then they're having the conversation. She also picks up that her nephew and her his to be wife are not
Mm-hmm.
are living together in their own house. So she becomes a bit upset
Mm-hmm.
about that because she believes in traditional
Oh.
living separately and then getting married and living together.
Yeah.
And now she's
Looking
very
at the
upset. The
Chinese flag.
mother, yes,
Right.
and the mother is very upset because the
Right.
these people will be dressing ridiculously in a church. So she wanted them to dress a
Mm.
suit and a proper dress for the church.
Oh.
So now so
So
she is questioning, and then they
okay.
say, no, we are having a
Right.
traditional wedding, but it's going to be a lay ceremony
Right.
around a swimming pool, all that type. So there are lots of
Yeah.
confusing cultural
Even though
issues.
even though events that happened up to the wedding were not really traditional, we are going to cover it up with the traditional wedding.
Correct.
Right. So
Yeah.
yeah, okay. So that
So
whole, so when you say that that whole performance, or that the
Performance,
money that they spent on all that is a cover up. So in a way, right, it's a cover up of whatever that happened against their will. Like they could not control the way their children and the control what their children did, right? They were living together, which is way against live together before marriage, which is way against our culture, I guess.
traditional values, yes, yes. Yeah.
Traditional values,
Which is
yeah, and
changing, by the
they
way,
could
but
not stop it. Yeah.
yeah,
And they could not stop it. And then, as you said, the children are culturally confused. They were not born in Sri Lanka. They were never brought up in Sri Lanka. They have not seen the actual culture in Sri Lanka. They have no idea except for whatever that they were told by their parents from a snapshot of memory that they had when they left Sri Lanka, right?
yeah.
That's the confusion they have, right?
Correct.
They were brought up in a very Western country, then they were spoon fed with all these, I don't know, the version of Sri Lankan traditional values from their by their
Parents, yeah.
parents. But then again, they still could not make them Sri Lankan, right? They are pretty much Australian. But then again, they wanted to, but then again, for their relatives, for everyone, or to themselves, whatever the failure that they, made, by not having, traditional Sri Lankan kids, this whole wedding for them is just to make themselves feel better and also tell everyone else we are traditional Sri Lankans. Our kids are
Absolutely.
traditional. They are going to wear a sari, right?
Yeah.
So like, but
And we
they're
see
not.
that.
But it's just.
And we
I
see
don't
that.
know.
I
Like
mean, when you attend many of these functions, you see that the children don't understand any of the practices, the customs, or the rituals. And what is
right.
more insulting is sometimes you see them laughing at it because they find it hilarious. So that is insulting
Yeah.
to begin with. And
Right.
I mean, we talk about cultural
Right.
whitewashing. We talk about I call this cultural brown washing because you're trying to sort of
Brown.
paint
Yeah.
a culture on top of it that which it doesn't exist and doesn't make any sense to the parents.
Right.
Neither does it have any
Right.
significance to these two young people. They don't know anything about it.
Right.
So
Anything about it. That naiveness. I don't know if that's a word, but then again, that thing that we see when it comes to those two children where who don't know anything about the Sri Lankan culture or the rituals or whatever that's going on in a wedding, that strangeness that they have to all these things, they also use that as a way to show that they're different from people in Sri Lanka also. They do all these traditional things to say, okay, we are traditionally Sri Lankan, but also that they like that part also.
yes,
That, their kids acting in a different way. I think they approve that also. So that,
yes.
there's a distinguished difference between, that there's a class difference
I mean
also
that is
there.
I mean
So they like
you
that
just
also.
I mean when you observe many migrants who visit Sri Lanka, who are Sinhalese speaking or even Tamil speaking, but the fact that their children, when they return to Sri Lanka, would have a put on accent or would refuse to speak Sinhalese or Tamil, but would speak in English, fully understanding Sinhalese and Tamil questions that have been asked from them, but replying only in English,
Right.
and parents taking pride in the fact that their children are not talking in Sinhalese or Tamil, but මේගොල්ලෝ
Right.
ඉංග්‍රීසියෙන් විතරයිනේ කතා කරන්නේ. මේගොල්ලෝ එච්චර සිංහල බැහැ. That is a pride they're taking, which I find it's hypocritical. It's hypocritical.
Yeah.
You want to, and they
Like,
have come, and we have come down to Sri
it's
Lanka
a
to connect our
mess.
children with their roots. That's their story. අපි ගෙනාවේ ලංකාවට මේගොල්ලන්ට අපි ලංකාව අඳුරලා දෙන්න ඕනේ. ඒගොල්ලන් we have to connect them with their roots. හැබැයි නෑ නෑ මේගොල්ලෝ සිංහල කතා කරන්න කැමති නැහැ.
රූට්ස් පෙන්නනවා හැබැයි රූට්ස් ඇත්ත රූට්ස් ඉන්න ඒගොල්ලන්ට වැඩිය පල්ලෙහැයි කියලා තමයි ඒගොල්ලෝ
Yes,
පිළිගන්නේ.
they are better. They are better.
The real roots are like below them, right? They are better than the real roots. They just bring their kids to Sri Lanka just to show those, roots, to feel better. I don't know, like ඔතන තියෙන ඒ ලොකු conflict එක ඒකනේ. ඒ කියන්නේ අපි ශ්‍රී ලංකන්, ඒ කියන්නේ ශ්‍රී ලංකන් වෙන්නත් ඕනේ. නමුත් එතනින් එහාට වෙනස් මොකක් දෙකක් වෙන්නත් ඕනේ. කියන්නේ අර
Yeah.
ඒකම නෙමෙයි. Not exactly Sri Lankan, but something better than that in their eyes, which is a little more Western, but not all the way
Not too
Western
Western.
also, not all
Not
the way
too Western.
Australian, not too Western. Western the right amount, that they are not fully Australian but all Western, but with a little bit of that whatever that Sri Lankan things that they think call themselves, like call Sinhalese or whatever, like
Yeah, because they at the
that's a
same time
very,
that they
I
like to
mean,
differentiate themselves from the Sri Lankan community, they also want to differentiate themselves from the Australian community. They would say, "Oh, we are
Australian
of Sri
community
Lankan
also.
heritage." We have a
Right,
culture,
right.
we have our this is not our culture. They would use those arguments against we don't do these
Mm-hmm.
things. This is our culture says this.
Right,
They will take great pride in it, but at the same time, when they are given
right,
opportunities to embrace their culture, they will say, "No, no, we
right.
don't do this in Australia. Hey, we can't do this. Hey, ගඳයි ඒවා කියන්න බෑ. Hey, you will hear things like that said, no?
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
ඒ
yeah.
ගෙවල් වල මේව
So,
උයන්න බෑ
so, so
ගඳයි.
you do, so you do the right, so you assimilate the right amount, I think.
So you can't pick and choose. You are or you're not.
Right.
But if you're picking and
Not,
choosing,
yeah.
then because every element in a culture has its basis because it sits on top of a certain set of values, beliefs, and attitude. So you can't pick bits and pieces that you want. They're there for a purpose. But what these people are doing is they're tending to pick, and for their convenience. Their convenience.
Convenience,
That
yeah.
is the
Yeah, yeah,
hypocrisy.
yeah. So they'll be approved by the white people. So they do
Correct.
the right amount. They pick and choose from the white culture to a point where so that the white people will approve them, but also they want to like keep whatever that pick and choose, keep whatever from the Sri Lankan or Sinhalese or whatever culture they're from originally. They pick and choose things from that so that they won't be like all the way white.
Yeah.
Also, yeah.
So it's like this
I
typical
think being queer is one of
Redda
the
Mahatya.
white things that they don't want to be.
Correct.
Being queer and LGBTQ plus is one of the white things that they don't want their kids to be.
Correct. So
But
they have picked and
speaking in an
chosen that.
accent,
Yeah.
yeah, speaking in an accent and dressing up like maybe dressing up with dressing up, wearing suits and
Yeah.
stuff, like eating white food probably, like, or
Correct.
speaking in a way, a specific way, not in an accent, but also like speaking in a certain way,
Yeah.
all those things, presenting yourself, all that comes. So those are the picked and chosen
Yeah.
characteristic from the white culture. Yeah, so it's a very messy situation.
It is a very messy situation. And
Yeah.
again, I mean, I question we are putting the blame exclusively on these people, but we have to also understand that they are trying to survive. They are
Survive.
trying to survive in a they are trying to survive in
Survive,
a
yeah.
very in a hybrid space, a
Colonial.
space that yes, it's
Right.
not theirs,
Yeah.
and neither time they want to be there. So that they are straddling a
Right.
space that they have to. So it's an issue of survival because do you become too brown or do you become too white? So how much of it should
Too
you take?
white.
So they are always
Right.
negotiating and managing that space. So it's a survival that they are
Yeah.
doing, but in
Yeah.
that there's a lot of hypocrisy. There's a lot of hypocrisy.
Hypocrisy. Yeah.
Uh,
Yeah.
Which
Hypocrisy is part of the survival.
correct.
It's a huge part of the
Correct.
survival. Yeah.
Because they
Yeah.
have to sometimes see as in this in certain social cultural research we call it compartmentalization. So you take uh, you know that you have certain values, but you know that those values don't exist with the other things. So for example, many people who would eat traditional food at home with their fingers, and they enjoy eating food with their fingers and their hands. But when they go to a workplace or when they work in the professional world, they avoid eating that way. They will eat different food. Or if they are vegetarians at home, they will be sometimes eating meat outside because they have to mix with their colleagues. If they don't drink at home or smoke, they will do it because they have to mix with that. It's we see that even in peer pressure situations, not migrants but other people as well. Even you see it in schoolboys, schoolgirls doing the same things as well, trying to fit in. but it takes a different dimension when it comes here. And what happens is then they say, okay, this is my home life and this is my outside life. They can't mix the fact that these so you have a set of values
Yeah.
for home and a set of values for outside, and they don't mix. So you are not even making a compromise. You're just
Right.
keeping them separately. But then how can you? So
Right.
you're
Right.
essentially maintaining two identities. And when we talk about
Identities.
maintaining two identities, I don't think anyone is more capable of maintaining two identities discreetly than queer people, because most queer people
Right.
go through schooling having to hide a certain part of them, can't not allowed to show that, not allowed to show that. So
Allowed to show that.
when it comes to seeing both spaces, negotiating both spaces, and being able to look at it simultaneously, I think that's a privilege of queer people more than
People.
others who
Yeah.
have
Yeah.
come from
Yeah.
the mainstream. So
Right. So that's why this is a queer book, because just like we said, you see these things as the way you see these things because you're queer, because you're
because
in
yes, because you don't sit in one space,
you're an outside. Yeah, and you're outside of that the whole. Not maybe
outside and
not
inside at the
really
same time.
outside at the same time. Yeah.
Yeah. So it's
You're looking at that from a little above, compared to everyone else, but you're in it. You're in it also. You're
yeah,
part of it. You're affected by it. You have, unfortunately, you have to be part of it, unless, like in my case, our case, like we are like totally disconnected, because I call it a privilege.
yeah,
Because I had the support of my partner, he had the support of mine, and then because of that privilege, I call it, I think it's a privilege. Because of that, we were able to like stay outside of that completely, sort of. But then again, yeah, in most cases that's not the case. Even for a queer person, you have to be part of that. But then again, yeah, because you're queer, you have that ability to like also not be part of it, right? Yeah.
correct.
Yeah.
Yes,
That's really true. So
and
that's
I
why this is
think
a queer book. So,
that's why I call it a queer book,
so
and I
the
don't
conclusion,
and I
yeah,
refuse
yes, this is a queer book.
and I refuse using the labels of calling it gay or
Right.
non-binary. I don't use those. I call it queer because I prefer that term,
Queer.
because it means that it
Yeah.
doesn't belong to any of the categories. It's not part of the.
Right.
It's just
Right.
queer. It's weird. In
Queer.
its
Weird.
strange.
I
Weird. I
always
don't
like
mean in a
that.
negative way. Sort
Yeah.
of. It's
I
just
always
outside.
like that word. Yeah.
It's
You don't, you're not being part of that menace of labels. Also, even though the name queer was invented in the West, I like it much better than calling myself gay or non-binary. Or I mean, I think we are all non-binary. I mean, agree or not, but then again, yeah, like, but the non-binary thing, from a sense where like they use it as a label, yeah, like that doesn't make sense, yeah, because I had a discussion this morning with another friend. We were saying that when you say you're non-binary, it means it means you're accepting the binary. That you accepting that there are people who adhere to the
not.
binary gender, right? But
That's
no one's everyone's non-binary in that, right?
yeah.
Everyone's non-binary. Yeah, so, but you're explicitly calling. I mean, it's open to argument, but it's just a perspective of it's a way you can describe it. But then again, I'm not saying that calling yourself non-binary is wrong. But then again, if you rationalize it in a way, like in that sense, yeah, if you call yourself non-binary, which means you're
You have to
basically
acknowledge the
accepting the
binary.
fact that,
Then
yeah, acknowledging. Yes, that's the
yes,
word.
because
You're
it's only
acknowledging
then.
there's binary gender.
So, like when we
Yeah.
talk about non-white people, so that means you're
Right.
acknowledging a white majority, a white hegemony. Whereas
Yeah.
I
Right.
prefer terms like brown people or culturally, linguistically diverse people,
Right.
which is more inclusive
Right.
rather than.
Right.
Uh, bec- and I think we spoke about this last time when we said about decolonizing. The framework for decolonizing comes from colonizing itself. So we have to acknowledge that that
Right.
is the framework that we have to work in, which again
Right.
makes it difficult because you're having to work with those tools. Uh, and
Yeah.
and yeah, so in that respect,
Yeah.
I see the book as But you have made me think, Supun, you have made me think whether
Right.
whether
I mean, it is a queer book. I mean, it's definitely a queer book. I used that, confusion throughout the episode so that at least whoever, watches this would at least be open enough to go read the book. But then again, I agree that the book is a queer book. I mean, it definitely is. But then again, yes, I think when you're marketing it to non-queer people, maybe we can, I mean, you can think of
yeah,
another way, right? Like, yeah,
I could even
yeah,
say something that we
I
are
think.
all queer. Everyone is queer because there is
Mm-hmm,
no I don't think unless we are made from a cookie cutter or genetically modified clone to be identical to another person, every one of us are different. Even if we have had grown up in the same home, even with our same siblings, we are always
mm-hmm,
very different. So in that
mm-hmm,
respect, so then each of us has at some stage a situation where we have to communicate to someone else our
mm-hmm,
perspectives, and that is a
mm-hmm.
cross-cultural issue. And in that
Right.
situation, it's for you that person would be in its in language sense queer, and you would be queer
Mm-hmm.
or strange to that person. That is what you're talking about here. So
Right. Right.
essential. So
Uh,
yeah,
yeah.
so we are all
And
queer.
one, we are all queer, and also finally, right? If I take another angle, right? If you want to know, if you want to, if you're in something, if you're in a problem, or if you're in an environment, or if you're in a situation, you are not the best person to see what's going on, right? It's always good to read someone else's perspective. So in that sense, I think the best way to get a good idea of what's going on around you would be to go read someone else's perspective of your situation, which would be your book, right? So even if it's about a queer person, I think it's a good idea to read his perception, because it might be a very balanced perception of the situation that you are in also, right? I think that would be another angle
Sure,
to talk about, to think about that book also. Yeah, I
sure,
mean, yeah, it's good.
absolutely.
Yeah,
Oh, that's
cool.
a very good point.
Awesome. Yes, yeah, I mean, yeah. Yeah, now we are literally talking about how to market the book.
Market book.
Awesome. Cool.
So it's a valid
Thanks, Sean.
point. Thank you,
Yeah,
Supun.
I
Thank
mean,
you.
yeah, it is. Yeah, I think so. Awesome. Yeah, it had a really nice time. Yeah, I mean, I always have a really nice time talking to you. I learn a lot
Likewise.
every time I talk to you. Also, uh, I just have to appreciate your for being part of the podcast. Also, I'm really grateful for that. Not just that, but also you know the interactions that we have, the discussions that I have with you. I learn a lot. That's what's interesting about
Nice.
the relationship that I have with you, and thank you for that.
Thank you. And each
um,
time I speak, I see
cool.
things differently. I mean, how we were speaking about the book, and
Twist
and
things.
it's yeah, because like I said, we, we can only see things with our perspective. I can't see anything
Mhm.
from. We say we can. I hear you. I see what you are saying. I understand you. But that is not. I can't completely hundred
Yeah.
percent understand you or see from your
Right.
point of view because that is not. I can't do it. It's only you who can do
Right.
it. So when you share
Right.
those thoughts, it makes me think, and that is the
Mhm.
great privilege of us being humans because we can share those
Mhm.
thoughts. We can hear other people's stories, and we can
Yeah.
start to think differently.
Yeah.
And yes, I really enjoy our conversations and
Me
both
too. Yeah.
online and
Yeah.
offline
Yeah.
and again I was delighted to share those sections of the book with you.
Yeah. Yeah. I am delighted to now buy the book. I'm gonna order it from Sarasavi, and I'm gonna get it. I'm gonna
Yeah,
read it somehow. I'm
yeah,
gonna
I'm
fix my
delighted.
focus and yeah. Cool. Thank you, Sean. Yeah,
Thank
then
you.
yeah, අපි හම්බෙමුයි ඊට තව එපිසෝඩ් එකකින් බොහොම ස්තුතියි එපිසෝඩ් එකට ආවට.
Bom,
එන
isso de Supun for having
නිවෙන්න.
me and I come. Bye.
Thank you. Bye everyone.